Hey, Skylar here from the Mint Change You Can Wear. Today in this video we're going to talk about a complete tool list for coin ring making. I'm going to break the tool list up into three categories. Basically it's going to be a basic one, an intermediate, and then an advanced version. That way if you're just getting into coin ring making you can look at the basic list. If you want to advance a little bit into how much you want to spend for tools to get more advanced coin rings, you can go to the intermediate and then so on to the advanced. So we're going to go over that right now. Okay, to start with the first tool list we're going to look at is the basic tool list. So that's if you're making the very basic coin ring. So the only things you're going to really need that are specialty tools are a steel mandrel like this. And a quick word on the mandrels that you choose. I know a lot of people have made the mistake of getting a grooved mandrel. Basically what a grooved mandrel is, and I have one here because I made that same mistake. Basically you can see this groove in it. And what that does is to help when you're sizing rings that have a setting in them or something like that. The other thing you really want to look for is that there's numbers, ring sizes on the mandrel. And get a steel one. You don't want an aluminum one that won't stand up to the forging process. The other thing you're going to want that's more or less a specialty tool is a mallet. I use rawhide mallets in most of my other videos. And to be honest with you, I started looking at YouTube and I saw a lot of people were using this Harbor Freight teardrop mallet. And, I decided to give it a go just to see what it was all about. And it's not a bad mallet, so it's a little cheaper than a rawhide mallet. And to be honest, it lasts a little longer too. So you can pick that up at Harbor Freight for about 10 bucks. The mandrel, also probably more like 10, 13 bucks, something like that. And I really encourage you guys, if you want to start with this basic method, get that forged book. I'll leave a link in the description box below for it. It's going to go over a complete tool list. Now those two things were the specialty tools, but you're going to have things like files and a drill and things of that nature. You know, the book's really cheap. It's like $1 or $2, something like that. And it comes along with a video on how to do it, the really basic method. You don't need a punch and die set or anything. So check it out if that's what you want to do. So now the second tool list we're going to look at is the intermediate method. And this intermediate method I try to do without the ring sizing tool, the ring stretcher. And the reason I want to do that because that ring stretcher costs, a couple $100. So if we keep that out of the equation, it stays quite a bit cheaper. So the first thing we're going to want to look at is a 6-ton hydraulic press from Harbor Freight. So here it is. This is my recommendation for a press. I initially bought this 6-ton press to deal with bending Morgan dollars. I was having a really hard time breaking ring sizers, trying to size them. And then I went and bought some arbor presses, which were a little smaller, like a 1-ton, 1.5-ton arbor press. And I broke some of those too, trying to size these Morgan dollars. So I finally went to the 6-ton press, which, to be honest with you, isn't really that expensive. This one I got for 50 bucks at Harbor Freight. I used a 20% off coupon that you can get online like anytime you want. So really cheap and really, really effective. This hydraulic press also affords you some finesse, some really fine tuning that using a ring sizer or an arbor press doesn't. You can really dial in exactly how much pressure you want to put in without any effort too, which is kind of nice. Another thing you're going to need is some way to size your rings. The basic method, basically, it comes off the mandrel in a cone shape, and that's pretty much what you're stuck with. With this intermediate method, you're going to want to size those rings, and you're going to need a die to do that. So the basic way of finding something right off the shelf is this dapping block right here. This is about a 2.5-inch dapping block. I'm going to leave a link in the description box below for this exact one that I bought off of eBay. And, it works pretty well for sizing a coin ring. You're still going to be using the hammer method to forge the ring, but then sizing it you can do in this dapping block. Now you can start off with the ball bearing method in the dapping block, but it's not going to get it to the cone shape that you really need it to be at. So there will be some hammering if you didn't want to buy dies. So in the basic method of making a coin ring, we were using a drill to drill the hole out of the coin, which is really difficult, very labor intensive, and half the time doesn't come out perfectly centered. So for this intermediate version, what we would use is the 9-piece punch and die set from Harbor Freight. I think it's about 30 bucks, something like that. So it's not totally cheap, but it's definitely worth the money if you're going to be punching coin rings and you want it done accurately. So that is what I would use there. This is what I use to line the coin up. So that's what I would use there. And another optional thing you can use to make a perfectly centered hole every time is Skip King's punch cards. Now this is an older version. He has a much better version now that's self-centering. I will leave a link in the description box below for his Etsy page where he sells those. Highly recommend those. And they're incredibly cheap. It's worth every bit of it if you want a perfectly centered hole every time. And also in this method, of course, you're going to need a mandrel, just like you would in the first method. Same thing, you're going to need this mallet. And another thing, for stretching coin rings out without a ring sizer, but you don't want a spring for the expensive ring sizer reducer, you can use something called a Rathburn ring sizer. And I've had someone actually call me and tell me it was a really good idea he had. It wasn't my idea, I wish it was. You take this ring sizer, and it's meant to be hammered, hit in the back with a hammer while you have a coin on it, or a ring on it. And this guy actually put it in the 6-ton press and pressed it, and it was a whole lot easier for him to stretch that coin out. So that's something you could do. I think that's like 20 bucks, maybe even a little bit less for that Rathburn ring sizer. Another thing you're going to need, as with the basic method, you're going to need a torch, a propane torch. You can use pretty much any old propane torch. I like something that's not as pinpoint of a flame, but it's really up to you. You can be careful and use pretty much any propane torch. In this method, you're still going to need a half-round file. This is what mine looks like. Just a basic half-round file. And then the other thing you're going to need, basically, is you want to use the ball bearing method with the dapping block. You got to have some ball bearings, so I'll put a link in the description box for those below also. Now, a lot of you guys will know that there's those plastic ball bearings, those Delaware resin ball bearings out there. And I have to tell you, I despise those things. They just are not good. I don't like them. I know a lot of people really do like them, and that's great, but for me, I can't stand them. I've had them, and I've tried to use them, and I've had nothing but problems with them. So go back to the steel ones. You're going to have no problems. You'll buy them once, and that'll be it. So that is basically it for the intermediate level tool list. So for the advanced method tool list, there's only going to be basically 3 things that you need to get, and they're all pretty expensive, but they make life so much easier. The first one's going to be one of these, is a ring stretcher reducer. And there's several different types you can buy. There's a really basic Chinese version. It's the cheapest, of course. But their dies are really, really rough on the inside, so they need to be taken to a machine shop and, smoothed out. So there's the one downfall with those. And like pretty much all ring stretcher reducers, the handle breaks almost immediately. So there's a couple different ways of dealing with that. I put a mandrel in the hole, and that's all I did. It was really simple for me. I know a lot of people have had them welded back on properly. One of the previous ones I had before, I actually just enlarged the hole where the handle did go, and I cut the threads off the handle and just stuck it back in there, and it made it a whole lot stronger. It didn't break again. They have an Italian-made one, which is a little more expensive. Basically, it looks like the Chinese one, but it's got smooth dies. So, and then you can go to a really nice one like a Durston. I would recommend a Kagan, but the only problem with the Kagan is I absolutely love the Kagan. It's cam-driven, so it's easy to use, but it doesn't have a very large opening here for $half. So I basically only use it to size down smaller size $half and quarters. So there's a couple different options there. I'm going to leave a link in the description box below to a company that sells all 3. So you can look at them all side by side and make your decision about it. The other thing you're going to need is dies, properly made dies. So here, the ones that I had made in a machine shop, and I'll put a link in the description box below for the specifics on them so you can have them made if you have a machine shop in your area. But generally, more often than not, if you do have a machine shop, they don't want to mess with the small orders, or they're incompetent or something. I've heard of a lot of horror stories about machine shops. So I really strongly recommend, these are a couple of Jason Works dies, and I'll leave a link also for his Etsy shop. He sells these. They're really affordable, incredibly well made, so you're not going to have a problem with them. Basically what a die does is it allows you to use the ball bearing method and not have to do any hammering, and it gives you a really consistent sizing tool to size your rings when you're done making them. And the third and final thing is a proper punch tool. So here's one that I had made, and this is going to be in the same video with the dies I just showed you. Specifics on these if you want to have a machine shop make them. And basically what is a self-centering tool that punches a $half, a quarter, or whatever coin you want to have made. And you just put it in the press, punch it, or use a mallet, punch it out, It's perfectly centered every time, really simple. Jason's Works also makes a really wonderful one, but I let a friend of mine, a neighbor of mine who got into coin ring making, borrow it for a trade show he's doing. So I don't have it to show you. I'll link Jason Works' Etsy shop, like I said, so you can take a look at his punch and die. I have another video actually showing it that I just made earlier, so you can take a look at that if you want to take a look at it. Really good option though. So that's the advanced method. Basically, it's 3 things, but they're all kind of expensive. You know, it's a couple $100 for the dies, it's a couple $100 for the punch and die set, no matter which way you go, and a couple $100 for the ring sizer. If you're just getting into coin ring making, I strongly recommend that you start with the basic method. It's really cheap to get into, a couple $20 maybe to get the specialty tools, and then sell some of them, and then save that money up, and then buy some of the stuff on the intermediate tool list. And then once you get in the intermediate tool list, sell some more rings, then you can save up money for the more advanced tools. Really everything here, if you started off right from the very beginning with the advanced method, you're not even going to spend $1,000 on all of the tools. It would be under $1,000. And I know a lot of people think, oh my goodness, that's a huge amount of money, but I don't know about any of you guys, but when you go to start out in the construction industry, you have to bring your own tools to that, and that gets expensive. So, I mean, I don't really have a lot of sympathy for the whiners out there. Sorry for being blunt, guys, but let's not whine about tools. Everyone needs to buy them. Alright guys, well that's pretty much it for the tool list. Hope you guys found it helpful. And if you did, please like and subscribe. And also if you want to look at any completed coin rings of mine, you can check them out at www.changeyoucanwear.net. I'll leave a link in the description box below also for that. Alright guys, thanks. Have a good day.